Welcome to Multiversatile. My name is Jake Long, and in today's video, I'm talking about the X-Men in the MCU and a potential reboot of the MCU. A reboot of the MCU is something that I've been talking about for a little while, and many people have dropped hints about it. Lately, people have been talking about it more. On the John Campea show, they mentioned it, and Yellow Flash has mentioned it, and some of the other channels that I follow. Mark Guggenheim, I believe, who was the creator of the Arrowverse, commented that he thinks the MCU is due for a reboot, and he also thinks that maybe that's what they've been gearing up for with Secret Wars. In the comics, there were two Secret Wars, one in the 80s, one in more recent years, and the newer one was sort of a multiverse, ended with sort of a reboot for the comics. So he thinks that that may be what they're going to do with the MCU. I think that that is very likely as well, and I also do hope that is the case. Now that the MCU is finally going to be able to have interactions with the X-Men and the Avengers and Fantastic Four, it would be a little lame, honestly, to not have Tony Stark and Steve Rogers there. Now, I believe we're gearing up to see a Secret Wars that includes the old Fox characters as well as the MCU characters, and probably some variants of those characters played by those actors. Maybe some other actors will probably get Channing Tatum playing Gambit. A lot of sort of fan service, but if it's done right, it could be really cool, and it could be a really awesome send-off to all of these characters. And that's really awesome too, because Kevin Feige has pretty much been involved with all of these characters on some level. Maybe not all of them, but he was a producer on the X-Men original movie, I believe the first two, maybe three, before he went over to be president of Marvel Studios. So this is really a culmination of the Fox movies and the MCU movies. And then it would be great to afterwards have a new beginning. With the disappointment of Secret Invasion, it's just another sign saying that the MCU is due for a reboot. Now, I am hoping they go through with their upcoming projects. I am excited for them, and I think they should just not do too many projects, but lead up to Secret Wars and do it justice. I'm excited for Deadpool 3, Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four. Since they are introducing a new Fantastic Four team, I think it would be good if in the Secret Wars somehow this new team makes it into the new universe, which isn't too far off from the comics, because Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman's son, Franklin Richards, has reality bending abilities, so he could easily bring them into the new universe. It's just hard for me to get on board with the continuation of the MCU in the state that it is now. I know that there can still be good movies, and I'm not saying they should announce a reboot right now. I definitely think that they should be focusing on making these next few projects really, really good. There's some projects that I don't think they necessarily need to make, like Agatha or Echo, but if they have really good stories for them and they're actually going to put in the work to make them really good, then I say go ahead. And I'm not the only one who's talked about Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. John Campea mentioned that ever since those two were gone, the MCU has just lost its, I can't remember exactly what he said. I think it's lost its heart. But yeah, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers were a big part of that. And I know the X-Men and the Fantastic Four are coming in, and the focus is going to be on those characters. And I do want to see Marvel do those characters right, but I also want to see those characters interacting with Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Clint Barton, Natasha Romanoff, the whole Marvel world. There are a lot of X-Men and Fantastic Four events that impact the Avengers, so it would be really cool to just see a world that includes all of these characters. And no, not every project has to have all of these characters together, but to see a few movies where they all team up would be really cool. A reboot would also be good for the X-Men, just because in this world that we're used to of the MCU, they haven't really talked about mutants very much. They did mention it briefly in Miss Marvel that she is a mutant. But in the X-Men world, there have been mutants for ages. Yes, they could say, well, they're just discovering mutants, even though they've been around for a while, because there are more and more now. But I think that it would just be better to start over with a world that already knows about mutants, at least on some level. Personally, I would do sort of a pseudo sequel type reboot, with picking up with the Avengers having already faced threats like Ultron and Thanos, and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four were there. Because going forward, we don't want to face Thanos again for a while, unless he's sort of a minor multiversal character, which I think would be great for Secret Wars. But after Secret Wars, I think they should steer away from the multiverse as much as possible. Introducing characters like Cable and Bishop can be a little bit problematic here, but I do think it would be cool to have Bishop maybe in the Secret Wars and he ends up with the new team of X-Men. I think what I would do is have the Fantastic Four go into this new universe, and then once the reboot is started, sort of look at it through the lens of the Fantastic Four, and they kind of see, oh, okay, the Avengers, they have these similarities to the Avengers we saw before. The X-Men, they have these similarities to the X-Men that we saw before, but there are things that are a little bit different. With the X-Men, I would pick up with Magneto recovering from the loss of his powers, having gotten the cure, but now his powers are coming back. He's sort of secluded himself away from everyone, and Mr. Sinister would be the main villain for the first X-Men movie. We would see an established team with Cyclops, Storm, Rogue, Jubilee, Jean Grey, Beast, and maybe even Bishop, Gambit definitely, and Mr. Sinister would lure some of the X-Men to the Savage Land, specifically Cyclops and Jean, but also others because he likes to mess with the DNA of anyone he can. And I would show sort of Mr. Sinister's connections to characters, how he's been observing Cyclops and Jean. He experimented on Wolverine, which was in the comics. And I would also have some connections with him and Professor Xavier. Announcing a reboot right now probably wouldn't be the best idea. A lot of people say that DCEU's failures recently have been because of the announcement of the reboot. I think you can attribute part of it to that, but definitely not even most of it. Black Adam didn't make nearly as much money as it was supposed to for what it was. We even knew that Henry Cavill was going to be in it a little bit, and not enough people still went. So by that point, Warner Brothers decided that they needed to start over, and they gave James Gunn and Peter Safran the power. Anyways, that is all for me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the MCU should do a reboot? Do you think they should do it after the Secret Wars? I think that's probably the best spot for it. Personally, I think they should limit the amount of projects they do. Have a few good projects building up to the Secret Wars. Really end it with a bang and then start over. But let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. Take care.